Good day, everyone, and welcome to Miss Valley Entertainment News. My name is Dread. Welcome to the channel. If you haven't been here before, welcome. If you have been before, welcome back. Things are going well with the channel. I'm quite pleased with its growth. I'm quite pleased with the amount of people it's reaching. I do hope it continues. If you like the content, spread the news to others you may come into contact with you think would like it. I'd appreciate it. I'd like to see the continual growth of this channel. Like everyone on YouTube, we'd all love to actually get paid for what we do. But I never count on that. I mean, I've had several channels, and even when I got to one that gets paid, I make about $15 a year, so it's really nothing. But you know what? It's still a status point, and it is reaching a certain amount of people. And as content creators, we all wish to reach more people. So do your job and help out with that. And if you're, like I say, if you're coming here and you haven't been here before, consider before you leave in this video of dropping a like, dropping a comment, and subscribing to the channel, ringing the bell for notifications. Check out my links down below. There is a link down below to the original video that we are responding to. So check that out as well. And this original video is by the esteemed, the estimable, that's not a word, is it? No. The super energetic Stelden, who has a video here called Avowed News is Coming, but I Don't Have High Hopes, Xbox 2024 Developer Direct. So he's talking about the Developer Direct. I've talked about that a little bit. I don't really care too much about following that stuff, so he's kind of skipped ahead to the video where he's about to go in and start talking about Avowed, which is what I really am most interested in. I think we're close to the right spot here, so we'll jump in and I'll give my thoughts and everything. Before we do, let me just show you what I've got on my tabs happening up here, because I've got some stuff queued up and ready for me to watch when I'm done here. Let me show you what kind of stuff I'm watching and see if any of you are watching anything similar. I've got Abyssal Viper Episode 4 Skyrim Arcade's Commandment by DB Meech. I love watching some people play Skyrim, especially people who play Skyrim differently than I play it. DB Meech, great guy. Love his stuff. Over here, we've got Pure Imperial Oblivion Runner, Episode 18, Tower. Vanilla Skyrim AE Legendary Survival Playthrough by Boone23. I recently, in the last couple months anyways, met Boone23. Hell of a nice guy, and really enjoy his work. I'm in awe of his production values and the songs that he comes up with and actually sings as part of the game and stuff. I just whew. It's friggin' amazing. He does such a good job, so I would encourage you to check out any of Boone23 stuff. And then over here we've got Greed Gaming with Doom Shaman. I always say Shaman because I never knew how it was pronounced to begin with. Doom Shaman Episode 3, Curl Mills Cremation, Skyrim with Requiem 3VF tweaks. So of course everybody who knows Skyrim should know Greed Gaming. But I would encourage you to check out Greed Gaming, Boone23, and DB Meech, because these are people I watch pretty much everything they come out with. I haven't gone back over all their back categories. It's back catalogs. Sorry. Once I found them, I started watching everything they came out with going forward. I certainly have not been to any of these channels since the beginning, unfortunately. But yes, if you like Skyrim content, I would highly recommend all three of those. Check those out. All right, let's get into Stelden's video here. Let's go.
CRPG series that they've been making as well. Learn more about how Obsidian...
I think we need to go back a little bit more here. Need to go back a little bit more. Let's go about here.
And they all suck. Every year, Phil and the team, they're determined to make us eat our words, but it just never quite happens, let's be real. They describe Avowed, which will be at this presentation on January 18th, depending on where you are in the world. And on Avowed, they say the team at Obsidian will share the first deep dive into the gameplay experience fans can expect in Avowed, their upcoming fantasy action RPG, set in the fantastical, vibrant, living lands, basically set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, the isometric CRPG series that they've been making as well. Learn.
If you're a fan of the original Baldur's Gate or 1 or 2 or any of those games that are like that style from back in the day, it is definitely Yeah, Pillars of Eternity was definitely a love letter, an ode to those games. I think a lot of the areas on the map were handcrafted lovingly and painted, kind of like just it's artistry. It's artistry, just like it happened back in the day with Baldur's Gate. It's a very good, very good series in a very good setting. If you've never checked it out, if you like top-down RPG games, I would encourage you to give Pillars of Eternity a shot because it is well worth it, and it won some awards. So
More about how Obsidian's expertise in building worlds with the deep themes. Interesting they say that given most of Obsidian's games have actually been based on existing game IPs, their strength has actually never really been building their own worlds. Sure, they did Pillars of Eternity. Was it really a massive seller? I think the first did pretty well, but I think that was more on hype rather than the game itself. They obviously had the big Kickstarter. It was a time when CRPGs were doing basically nothing, so everyone was desperate for some sort of old school RPG.
all right, let's kind of fact check him here. I mean, he kind of starts out saying it didn't do very well, but then he says, well, I think it sold okay, and it was at a time when games weren't selling. These kind of games weren't selling well, so everybody flocked to it. Okay, let's just again, sometimes Estelden talks when he should Google search before he talks. I'm not criticizing him. Well, I'm pointing out a slight fault that I have with him at times. Okay, let's talk about Pillars of Eternity. We went right to Wikipedia, found the Pillars of Eternity wiki. Okay. Let's see. Reception, Pillars of Eternity. First of all, this came out, role-playing game developed by Obsidian Entertainment, published by Paradox Interactive, released by Microsoft Windows OS X and Linux on March 26, 2015. Game is a spiritual successor to Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale series. Is that a word? I don't know. It is now. Along with Planescape Torment. It does have a lot of similarities to Planescape Torment as well. Obsidian started a crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter for it in September 2012. The campaign raised over $4 million. So 2012, and it came out in 2015. It was less than 3 years later. So very, very good. Well done. The campaign raised over $4 million, which was the highest funded video game at the time. So yeah, before they had ever put anything out in this world, people were so excited by what they were doing. They made it at the time the highest funded video game at the time. And the game uses the Unity engine. Okay. Let's go right down here to, not to do development, to release. March 17th, 2015, Obsidian confirmed Pillars of Eternity went gold, meaning that it was being prepared for production release. Game was released on March 26th. Yeah, we don't need to know that part. Let's go to reception. Pillars of Eternity received generally favorable reviews from critics, according to review aggregator website Metacritic. Okay. The Escapist wrote that while it caters to a nostalgic fan base, it is an excellent role-playing game on its own merit. It also said it is the best isometric role-playing game to come out in years. PC Gamer said that Obsidian made their best game thus far with Pillars of Eternity and wrote that it is a worthy successor to the games it was inspired by. IGN praised the game, saying it is a representation of what is good about old-school role-playing games. Digital Spy lauded Pillars of Eternity, writing that it is a masterclass in role-playing game development. Game Revolution said that Pillars of Eternity combat is deep and engaging. Similarly, Metro wrote that the combat is highly complex. GameSpot said the combat is the game's best component and gave praise to the battle music. Game Planet praised the game for its strategic combat and level-based progression. Game Informer noted the combat's customizability in the game, including the ability to change the difficulty and set options for auto-pausing. However, the game criticized the pathfinding. Pillars of Eternity's graphics and artwork were well received. Game Planet called the art design in the game excellent. Game Informer said that the game's maps are thoughtfully crafted, that the detail on the characters and their equipment is incredible. Metro noted the game's higher resolution than older isometric games such as Baldur's Gate, saying that it benefits its gorgeous artwork. The review also praised the game's lighting and particle effects. The Escapist said that the spell effects in the game are quite visually impressive, and that the character models are an improvement from traditional isometric games. However, the reviewer said that the backgrounds are not as impressive as some of the more picturesque older titles. I think they're a little bit darker, thus maybe why it reminds a little bit more of Planescape Torment. IGN criticized the game's art style, calling it dated. All right. Game Planet found the game's voice acting to be excellent and free of overacting. Game Informer echoed this statement and also wrote the game's sound and music is delicate and beautiful. GameSpot called Pillars of Eternity's writing lovely. Particular praise was given by the reviewer to the character of the grieving mother, whose personal story he said was intriguing and mysterious. PC Gamer also praised the writing, saying it is rich and evocative. Destructoid praised the plot and the world's reactivity to the player, writing, "The main plot is packed with twists and surprises," and it is, with staggering ramifications for a world players will feel they have become part of. An IGN reviewer found characters in the game, both major and minor, to have well-developed characterization, but found it annoying that only some characters have voice acting. Eurogamer criticized the game for lack of humor compared with Baldur's Gate and Mort from Planescape Torment, called the quests as fairly stock and the characters forgettable. In October of 2015, so later the same year, roughly 6 months later, Obsidian and Paradox confirmed that the game had sold over 500,000 units. By February of 2016, it had sold over 700,000 units. Let's take a look at these review scores from Metacritic. For PC, we had 89 out of 100, PS4, 85 out of 100, X1, 86 out of 100, and NS, Nintendo Switch, 82 out of 100. Review scores here from Destructoid, 8.5 out of 10. From Game Informer, 9.25 out of 10. From Game Revolution, 4.5 out of 5, or 9 out of 10. IGN, 9 out of 10. PC Gamer US, 92 out of 100. And The Escapist, 5 out of 5, or 10 out of 10 if you prefer. Let's take a look at the awards. Nominated for by Global Game Awards: Game of the Year, Best PC Exclusive, Best Original Game, and won Best RPG. The Game Awards 2015 nominated for Best Role-Playing Game. PC Gamer won for Spirit of the PC Award. Rock, Paper, Shotgun won for Best RPG. IGN nominated for Game of the Year, nominated for PC Game of the Year, nominated for Best RPG. Writers Guild of America Awards nominated for Outstanding Achievement in Video Game Writing. And 19th Annual DICE Awards nominated for Role-Playing Massive Multiplayer Game of the Year. Now let's take a look at Pillars of Eternity 2 and see how it did. Developed by Obsidian, published by Versus Evil. Sequel to 2015's Pillar of Eternity, was released for Microsoft Windows, Linux, Mac OS, and in May of 2018 for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in January of 2020. Version for the Nintendo Switch was originally announced 2018, ultimately canceled in February of 2022 after multiple delays. The game was announced in January 2017 with a crowdfunding campaign on Fig where it reached its funding goal within a day. Reception. Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire received generally favorable reviews from critics, according to review aggregator website Metacritic. Josh Sawyer said that the game's sales were relatively low compared to their expectations. Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire was nominated for Best Storytelling and PC Game of the Year at the 2018 Golden Joysticks Award. It was nominated for Best Role-Playing Game at the Game Awards 2018. Nominated for Fan Favorite Role-Playing Game at the Gamer's Choice Awards. For Role-Playing Game of the Year at the 22nd Annual DICE Awards. For Outstanding Achievement in Video Game Writing at the Writers Guild of America Awards 2018. For Outstanding Video Game of the 30th GLAAD Media Awards, and for Adventure Game and Best Writing at the 2019 Webby Awards. Didn't win any of those, but was nominated. I don't think it was as good a game as the first one, quite honestly, but it was still interesting. I gave up on it, and there's certain parts of it I just didn't like, so I never ended up finishing it. Unlike the first one, which I've gone through like 3 times. So our reception, our scores, aggregator, Metacritic stuff here. PC 88 out of 100. So that compares over here to 89, right? PS4, 77 out of 100. The first one on PS4 had 85. And PS4 Ultimate Edition, 76 out of 100. And some review scores from publications. Eurogamer said it was recommended. Come on. GameSpot said 8 out of 10. IGN gave it an 8.5 out of 10. PC Gamer US gave it 88 out of 10. So particularly the first game was a banger, and it won multiple awards and got nominated for multiple awards. Second one got nominated for awards but didn't win any and sold less. They both crowdfunded like nuts and reached some massive goals very, very quickly. These were popular games for their time. Over time, though, they have kind of fallen by the wayside. There are, not nearly as many people remembered them going forward. There were other, I guess, more memorable games for people. It takes a lot for a top-down RPG game to really stick in people's conscience because, first of all, there's been so many of them over the years. Second of all, it's just harder for them to stand out. But I'm hoping Avowed kind of reinvigorates people, re-energizes them for top-down RPGs by having them go back to play these first two. Okay. So I'm not sure I'm agreeing with what Esteldon is saying about Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2. It's particularly 1, but he is entitled to his opinion. I just wish he'd do a little bit of Googling before he talks about some of these things. That's all.
Like this, it actually reminds me a bit of Double Fine, another Microsoft bought studio who were making one of the first genuine point-and-click adventures in a long time, at least in the somewhat mainstream. Everyone was pumped. I don't think that was that great. That was Broken Age, by the way. And Pillars of Eternity, kind of the same thing. It was the hype that brought people in, but when they finally played it, I don't think they thought it was the greatest game ever.
Yeah, well, you tell that to all the people who gave it all those awards and all those nominations. Not just the nominations, but the actual awards it won. I mean, come on. It won 3 awards. Best RPG, Spirit of the PC Award, and Best RPG. So, yeah, I think you're wrong on that.
It did get good reviews, but I think the reviewers weren't really CRPG players, so they didn't really know how to judge that.
Global Game Awards is not a CRPG lover. The Game Awards, PC Gamer is not a PC Gamer. Apparently doesn't play CRPGs. Rock Paper Shotgun apparently doesn't play CRPGs. Neither does IGN. Really? Really? It's a terrible take. Come on.
Correctly, and you can say I'm talking out of my ass. This is just an opinion.
He's talking out of his ass.
However, the second game did not sell well, and I think that's some sort of proof that people weren't absolutely gripped by the first.
No, it's because the second game hyped this ship traversal around the world because you were in an island chain for much of this game or all of this game. So, and it sounded really cool. You'd be able to get off the ship and land on individual islands and go explore, except you found out basically every island you came to, you sailed your little ship across the map, right? You clicked on the island, you clicked on things you wanted to go do on the island or places you wanted to go on the island, and it was a text adventure. Now, there was a lot of still text adventure in the first one, but this became a whole area where it felt like 50% of what you did was just reading text. Okay, we're going to adventure on this. Okay, we're going to clear this island by reading text and clicking a decision, reading some more text, clicking a decision, reading some more text, and then we're going to click on our boat and we're going to go somewhere else and do it again. That was the problem with this game. It utterly collapsed in on itself because of that decision. It was a bad decision. They needed far less text and actual more adventuring. I think the game probably needed a few more years and a little bit better thought process. And if they had the time and the better thought process, they could have fixed a lot of that and the game would have been good. The characters were fine. The story was fine, but I got bored of texting around in my ship, basically. It was like, this is fucking stupid. And I left the game and never went back to it. That was just, again, that's my opinion, but that's how I saw the second game. It overdid the aspects that were bearable in the first one, but they overdid it in the second one and killed it. And I say bearable there because there were text adventures. There were times where your adventures in the first Pillars of Eternity were just text adventures, some of them, and you just read the text, made your choice, right? Um, and that kind of thing. But it done at the right level and the right amount. That was okay. The second one like doubled or tripled down on it and utterly failed.
Game. If they were, they probably would have bought the sequel, such as with Divinity Original Sin 2, which sold a magnitude more than the first, suggesting that people actually wanted more of those games. They go on to say there's going to be dynamic gameplay and thoughtful reactivity come to life in Avowed, where players will have agency to make choices to shape every step of their adventure. Now, my prediction for what Avowed is going to be is basically the Outer Worlds with more of a Skyrim coat of paint, where
I would agree. I had very, very high hopes for Avowed when it was first announced. It was announced as an open world, and then they went, "Oh yeah, no, we're it's just going to be more zones." So I'm like, oh, really? You're cutting back already? See, I played Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2. I didn't finish 2, but I played them. And I loved going through character creation. There were so many friggin' options of races and abilities and different paths you could go down for your character. And when I heard about Avowed, I sat there and I thought, oh, wow, this is such a great system. What's it going to be like playing this system at first person and adventuring around? This is going to be awesome. And I began to put together like different ideas for what kind of character, what kind of race would I want to be? What kind of skill set do I want to have? What do I want to spec into? Because mixing and matching these things can create an amazing effing character in the first two games. It's got some of the best character creation and character progression in top-down video games, okay? Period. So I was excited to be able to create that kind of character again for this new game, and I literally spent weeks going over it, and I'd leave it aside while I go back and be like, I could create a better character than that for Avowed, right? And I'd be like, oh, so I got this all set up on how I want to do this. But it looks like no, you're gonna have your background already chosen, your missions already chosen. You only have 2 races to choose from, and you're basically on a set path. And my reaction to that, quite honestly, was fuck off. Why would you take everything good from your first 2 games and throw it away for the third one? I'm not saying this game will not be good. I'm not saying that. I'm saying my expectations are much, much, much lower at this point than they were to begin with, because they were sky high. I was like, this is the next Skyrim. This game is going to be fucking huge. Now I'm like, this game's going to sell a lot to begin with, and it's probably going to die out afterwards. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's a great game. But I don't have any hope. They cut back on way too many things when they should have gone full bore and full speed ahead, crashed through the wall, and broke down every barrier and unleashed hell on the world of gaming. That's what I wanted them to do. They played it safe in every way by clawing back everything they said at the beginning. They played it safe. And that's sad, because they had something really interesting going. I'm not telling you don't go buy this game or anything else. I'm just saying don't have too high of expectations. We'll see.
Whereas the Outer Worlds was kind of what it is, but a Fallout coat of paint. And back when they probably started work on this game, that probably seemed like the right thing to do. Bethesda, they just haven't got it together. Elder Scrolls 6 is still years away. So why not Obsidian? Why not jump in and take a cut of that pie? They announced the Outer Worlds at the absolutely perfect time. People had had enough with, say, BioWare, with Anthem. I think Fallout 76 was announced around that time. So most of these RPG studios, the mainstream ones, were getting it wrong, and Obsidian swooped in.
Excited for Outer Worlds too, by the way.
Outer Worlds is a solid enough game, but it just seemed to me like the big cheeses, the big wigs, probably at Obsidian and the publisher as well, they were just really worried about not making it accessible enough.
I am in love with the Outer Worlds game. I thought it was a great game. I had some issues with it at the beginning. I didn't realize close near the beginning there's occasionally a quest you get to where you just keep getting wiped out, and I didn't realize you have to go away, level up, and come back for those quests, and then it was fine. It was just basically a level thing. Had no idea I needed to be a higher level to complete some of these earlier quests. Once I started figuring out that stuff, the game was hella fun. It was amusing. The characters were interesting. I liked the quests. It wasn't so first person shooter type game that it turned me off, right? Whereas I look at Fallout games and I'm like, there's so much shooting in this, and you've got to be, fairly good at shooting to do it. You don't have to be that great at it to play the Outer Worlds. I'm living proof of that. I'm not good at that stuff, and I had a hell of a great time in Outer Worlds. It's not a game that requires you to be an expert in any way. So if you're saying that's accessibility and stuff to people, then I would agree with this, Eldon. But I think the game gets called a Fallout clone too much, and I don't think it's all that close. I think it's its own thing, and it stands alone. If you've never played it, I think you should give it a shot, because the further you get into it, the more it just picks up speed. And I fell in love with the characters, man. Pirate Captain Dr. Ellie, as I call her, that was my favorite fucking character. She was great. So fucking sarcastic. She was amazing. But all the characters, all the companions were freaking hilarious. I just loved it. I just loved it. You could look around and just ignore what was going on and start looking at like posters on the wall and things you'd find on the floor or hidden away in corners, and just be amazed by all the little details and all the amusements in the game. It was great. It was great. Really excited for the Outer Worlds too. I'll be buying that day one and installing it day one and playing it day one. Guarantee it.
Around that time, the RPGs to maybe look up to as mainstream successes, big sellers, were games like Mass Effect, which were essentially just action RPGs. They had choice, but in the gameplay department, it was often very simple. There were some systems, but you could easily get through it even on a normal world without really engaging with those systems all too much. You could almost just treat it like a shooter. It was really basic. The Outer Worlds just had this feeling like, hey, we're doing a few old school things, so you better like it. Let's forget about whether what we're actually doing is quality or not. We've got a Bethesda-like or a New Vegas-like dialogue system. Who cares about the quality of the actual writing?
The quality of the writing was some of the strengths of the game, Estelden. What are you fucking talking about? What are you talking about? Oh my god. I'm losing respect for you, Estelden. That's making me sad. The writing was hilarious and great. The characters they wrote into the game that you met and you did quests for, and you met in quests, or you bumped into on the street, were all fucking amazingly written. Sometimes I don't think Estelden plays games. Do you play games? Games? Have you heard of games?
Who gives a toss if these send-ups of the corporate world are actually good quality or not, if they're actually funny? We've put them in there. There's some RPG choices, some stats.
Oh, you don't have a sense of humor. Now I understand. Estella doesn't have a sense of humor. I get it.
So it should be good for you guys, right? You should like it because it is a role-playing game. Well, I think players do have standards, and now that we've got games like Baldur's Gate 3, for instance, plenty of other indie titles, Disco Elysium.
Well, sure, it doesn't compare to Baldur's Gate 3, of course not. Almost nothing in life will, for a long time. Let's be honest.
As well, people expect a higher quality standard, and the priorities with Outer Worlds seem like we need to sell this to the masses, so idiots need to be able to enjoy it as well.
Well, I guess I'm an idiot then. Fuck you, Estelden. I mean, yes, I agree. If you want to make a game, unless you're making it for just a specific set of fans, you're like, hey, we're going to make this for these 1,000 people over there that really like this. You know what? First thing's going to happen is your publisher and your developer are going to look at you and say, excuse me? You're making this game for that 1,000 people and no one else is going to get it? You better go Kickstart and fund it, because we're not funding it for you, because that's a money-losing proposition. That's about the only way you can do something like that. No. Any game you put out has to try to appeal to the masses. Absolutely. Was Outer Worlds, I don't want to say dumbed down because that's not right. Was Outer Worlds a simple game? Yes, I could play it. So yes, it's a simple game. I'm not a great gamer. I am a below average gamer when I play games. I don't have the patience to do things over and over and over and over again, failing, waiting to get it right. I'm not into Dark Souls shit. That stuff pisses me off, turns me right off, okay? I'm not into that. I don't have a good reaction time for anything. So whether it be shooters, whether it be hack and slash, whatever it is, I need to have the ability to have time to make my decisions. I prefer to, be able to run backwards and have my companions tank for me while I figure out what I need to do before I die right away. I'm not a great gamer in that sense, okay? Don't hold that against me. That's just how I am, and it's not age-related. I've always been that way. I didn't grow up with gaming consoles in my crib like kids nowadays do, okay? Didn't grow up with pooping out a cell phone on day 2, right? So, yes, The Outer Worlds was a game anybody can play, yes, but that isn't a bad thing unless you're an elitist who feels like you have to be challenged by your games. And God love people who like challenging games. Elden Ring, Dark Souls, blah, 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 blah. Great. Play those games to your heart's content. Just don't be demanding that all games be like that. Okay? We don't need all our games to be like that. That's your games. Here's games for everybody else. And The Outer Worlds was a game anyone can play. Anyone can dive into it and play it. Simple. Not a bad thing, Estelvin.
And I'm not just talking about complex systems. You've got to have an Excel spreadsheet on your second monitor to be able to enjoy it. I'm just talking about a little bit of depth and having writing that doesn't feel like Hollywood movies, where they treat you like you're a little bit stupid, you're a little bit simple. And for me, at least, The Outer Worlds kind of felt like that.
So that's an elitist attitude. Oh, the game talked down to me. Oh, the game wasn't difficult enough. Oh, the game was made so that children can play it and old people, and I'm much better than that. Fuck off. I wouldn't want you to review games, Estelvin. Quite honestly, I wouldn't want you to be a professional game reviewer because you'd be like all the other game reviewers out there and you'd only review the games you like to play that are your style, and everything else you'd give failing grades to and look down your nose at them because that's kind of your attitude right now, and that's not cool, dude. It's not cool.
Because Avowed was greenlit under those conditions, I am a little bit concerned that it's going to be around these same lines. There's going to be a big focus on let's make it really accessible, let's make it more of an action game.
Don't have a problem with that.
And maybe some of the RPG stuff is going to take a back seat. Now,
don't have a problem with that, and neither do millions of other people. So relax on that point. Again, my point is they had high expectations and high hopes for what they were shooting for, and then they clawed a bunch of things back. That's my issue with the game.
Now, if we look at an older interview, this is really the only interview that Obsidian have done in detail on the game, and it came out around the time that we had the big gameplay trailer around 6 months ago for Avowed. I think it's worth revisiting because we do find out some juicy details, such as you can play...
Don't skip. It says the way you interact with other characters in Avowed will be similar to the Outer Worlds, where your dialogue options reflect the tone you want to use. I like that. I remember my first time really experiencing that was Dragon Age 2 with the conversation wheel, and you basically picked the tone of the response you wanted to get. I remember picking a character who got to pick funny stuff to everything. I had another character I played during that game to pick sarcastic comments to everything. That was great fucking fun for developing your character. I absolutely love that, and I wish more games still did that. So if they're doing that, damn, that's going to be great. I like that. It says, quote, we try to hit a sweet spot when we're writing dialogue options where we invest enough personality for those options to be fun and interesting. Cool. But also leave enough space around them so that the player can really invest whatever headcanon they built for their character into that option, except your background and your race is already locked in. She wouldn't spill much about Avowed's story, but did give me some of the basics on what form of RPG to expect from Avowed. You have an established role as the Imperial Envoy, but your personality, appearance, and philosophy and vibe you bring to the role is up to you as a player to decide. Well, that's better, just not as good as having more options.
As a human or an elf, but not other races. And that's a little bit concerning in an RPG like this.
I guess because they're locking you into the Imperial Envoy, that's why. But there would be ways to have you be of another race and have the game start off and you're captured by the Imperials and said, hey, you know, we'll release you, but on this condition. Something along those lines. You work for us, right?
That there isn't going to be more choice in character creation, and sure, there's successful quality RPGs where you don't have a massive choice around who you are. Sometimes you're a preset character like Geralt in The Witcher. However, I think there's actually a difference there, because if they choose a preset character and a lot of work goes into them, that could be high quality development in its own right. But when they've gone to the trouble of actually making a character creator and there's barely any choice, well, then you're sort of getting the worst of both worlds. You're not getting a preset character with a quality history, a backstory, something to really sink your teeth into. You're just making your own, but you can barely choose who you are. I've seen some copers suggest that PC Gamer might have got this wrong. They misheard or didn't understand what they were saying correctly, but you would think that Obsidian would have corrected this if that was the case, and an amendment would have been made. It was the only interview to go out around that time. It's not like there were dozens, and someone just missed this. Obsidian obviously knew this was printed and did nothing. Now, this doesn't mean the game is going to be bad, but I don't think it's a really great start. It does mention it's purely single player, no co-op. I understand some people
problem with
like
that at all.
co-op, but I do like when a game is designed around just one.
There are so many games, especially on consoles and stuff, that you can go play with your friends. Not every game needs to be that. There are many you can play that way. If you're like, well, I don't want to play a game by myself, well, then don't purchase the game. Don't buy the game and play something else. That's fine. There's a million choices for you. You don't have to have the choice of every single game that comes out you can play with your friends, right? I like playing games alone. That's the way I game. That's the way I've always gamed. It's the way I game. I got no issues with playing alone. I've played with others on occasion. Depends on the game. Depends on if people can put up with me, because I'm really more interested in the roleplay aspect of the game than the mechanics. So,
person purely playing, and everything goes into that, because that is how I generally like to play these games. They do mention that you'll have 2 companions with you at a time with their own combat specialties and, of course, personalities. We'll see how we go. The Outer Worlds companions.
Does that force you to have 2 companions, or you just have a maximum of 2 companions? I'm hoping you can choose to, like, later on, people will make a hard mode where you do it all by yourself without a companion, or you pick the weakest companions, or, you know, those kind of things, right? Or let's try to adventure just through the whole game with only 1 companion. Somebody else joins and we'll dismiss the first one, or I don't know. Something like that. I hope there's those options. Not that I necessarily want to do that, but I like those kind of options because it makes for great videos by people who are much better at gaming than I am.
They just weren't very memorable. New Vegas, for instance, I remember those characters a little bit more. Hopefully they can improve there, and the companions don't just look like Netflix employees who've been let out of the office for the day, because that's sort of how the Outer Worlds companions felt. They weren't too interesting.
Wow. Again, the Outer Worlds companions and the writing of the companions were some of the most interesting out there. They had their own storylines, their own backstories, their own twists to their stories. Their own interesting plot points. They were living, breathing members of your crew that you interacted with, laughed with, cried with, and adventured with. It was fucking great. I don't know what you're talking about. Again, I don't think he has a sense of humor. Wow. Trent, be quiet. Trent just popped up in my head. Said maybe that's because he's from the UK. I apologize for Trent. Trent says things. My lips move and Trent says them. It's terrible. All right, I got nothing against people from the UK. My ancestors came from the UK over to Canada through the US. Well, some of them came directly to Canada, but anyways, yeah.
There are several ability trees to progress through, and you won't be locked to a particular class or playstyle. That's fine, as long as the combat, as long as the abilities are interesting. I think the problem, again, with making Outer Worlds so accessible is what tends to happen is you have these systems, these combat systems.
Okay, you're talking about the Outer Worlds again. We're just going in circles, Estelle. You're going in circles, and the video's only half over. We're gonna end talking about this right here again. Esteladin's whole video is down below. You can go check out the whole thing. We've actually, because we skipped a little bit at the beginning, we've only watched about 8 minutes of the video, and my God, we're 40 minutes in. I apologize. I interrupt a lot, and I pick things apart, and I argue with people over things that I'm passionate about. You know, sometimes you can't just listen to one person and take what their opinion is and just take it as fact. You have to look up some things yourself, have your own opinions, have your own insights, and then form, you know, your own thoughts after that. Everybody, I'm excited for Avowed. I'm just not as excited as I was. I don't think it's going to be the successor to Skyrim that I thought it was going to be. I think it's going to be something on a level below that. I think it's going to get a lot of hype at the beginning, though. A lot of people are going to play it. I think it's going to be great. I do like the fact that the world is very bright. It's not all dark and gloomy and stuff, which is interesting because Pillars of Eternity, especially the first one, was so dark. Like, it was so, like, the writing was very, very dark. The setting was very dark. It wasn't bright colors at all. It was just a terrible place to be in with this curse on the land. Very interesting that we're seeing, you know, the same world, the same lands, but I guess we're seeing a different aspect of it. We're seeing, you know, the living lands, right, with its bright colors and things, but yet there's a curse out there as well. It's very interesting. I wonder if we'll get some darker areas that we go into and stuff where things are dark and twisted and gloomy and spooky looking, or what. What's adventuring at night going to be like? Are you going to be able to do that as well? I would imagine so. But anyways, I'm excited for Avowed. I don't have the same expectations I had when I first heard about it. They're a lowered expectation, which is probably good. But I'm hoping it's a game that I go and play through and love and say I'd love to go back to that. Give it a few months, go back to it again, play some more of it, that kind of thing. I think it's going to be a very, very solid and fun game. So, despite some of the things that Esteladin says, both about this game and about Pillars of more about Pillars of Eternity, and more about the Outer Worlds, which, yeah, games he's remarkably wrong on. It's his opinion. Unfortunately, he spouts his opinion sometimes like they're facts and doesn't actually give facts. Whereas I went back and actually looked at some facts for these things. Although I guess I didn't look at it for the Outer Worlds. So we were talking about Outer Worlds sales, were we? But Outer Worlds was popular enough, they have no problem making a second one, and I'm so excited for that. That's just going to be damn good. Anyways, this is my video here on Avowed, and hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the reaction to Esteladin's video. Check out the original video down below if you want to go listen to his insane mumblings. The insane mumblings of this English person. I have no idea. I'm kidding, people. I don't have a problem with people from the UK. Except for the Scottish. No, I'm kidding. No, that's so wrong. Or the Irish because they're drunk. No, I'm kidding. Oh, Trent. Be quiet, Trent. Back to your girlfriend. Trent's got a girlfriend now. She helps keep him quiet most of the time. Keeps him from conquering the world. Everybody, I got to get out of here. From Miss Rally Entertainment News, my name is Dread. If you made it this far, what is wrong with you? Get a life. No, I'm kidding. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate your views and your likes, subscriptions, comments, all that stuff. Don't forget, I do read all the comments and I respond to as many as I can. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.